Thank you for this opportunity. My worry is whether the minister will listen to what we will say and whether they will use them. We've always tried to provide a solution, but oftentimes you see them not taking. So sometimes we get tired of coming to talk. But let me say, the first thing I would suggest the minister should do now, let there be electricity consumer consultative forum or consultative meeting. The impact of failure or success of this sector depends on satisfaction of consumers. No matter what you talk about gas supply, the investment, investors and all that, what is important is how does it impact on the ordinary Nigerian, the SME, the business person who buys fuel at the rate of 1,370 naira for a liter now and doesn't have the light, electricity to do his work and still pays for band A or band B that is high. So the economy is grounded. And we cannot talk about security now without fixing the power sector. Because a lot of youths are out of job. A lot of companies are out of job. There's no business anywhere. Go to the streets, people are suffering. And why it is important that I have observed that since privatization, all the ministers for power avoid engaging consumers in consultation. But they engage willingly the distribution companies, the generation companies, the transmission company. Why are they avoiding consumers? You go to the ministry, you have a department for distribution, generation, transmission. Then you have TCN there, none for consumer protection. And they go to the ministry, they build it into distribution department. And the distribution department, the civil servants in the distribution unit. I want to say that my own suspicion is that they are there to protect the interests of the distribution companies. And they do not advise the ministers properly as it concerns the concern of the consumers. And this is really why this sector is not moving. Biblically, if you oppress the poor, you can never progress. You don't expect this sector to progress. When a poor widow in a community, rural community like my village, is paying 19,000 naira for electricity a month and doesn't get this light for 1 week, and somebody comes violating the rules, carries the ladder, climbs up, if she doesn't pay, you disconnect. How much does this woman earn? Well, you go to a small business operator and ask him to pay you 20,000, and this business operator doesn't get the light, and you are telling him he's on band A and he's paying you the money, and at the end of the day he doesn't have the power to do the work. So why will the poor be extorted in this sector? Mr.
Corey, yesterday when the new minister was being screened, he likened the challenges facing the sector as systemic. And he's also said Nigerians should manage their expectations when it comes to, rejigging this sector, especially when he's in power. Doesn't mean that he won't do his best.
It's a pain and concern to us. And to Mr. President, when I met with him after my nomination, I asked him to pray for me. I wish you were there that night so that you could have added your own grace to the prayer. I asked him to pray for me. And he said, Tigbe, I have prayed for you before giving you this job. This is very daunting task. But I'm not going to do it alone. Since 1999, trillions have been invested. This Hallowed House Assembly, this chamber, we're going to come to you with difficult decisions. Your constituents will run to you. Please tell them to bear with us. There may be small pain, but we'll get there. Because we are going to have a disciplined approach to addressing this. I'll come and present to you what our plan is. We clear milestones. If you don't see this in 3 months, it means you won't see 6 months. So you must see the 3 months, and you must hold us accountable for it. When we put those things together in the next 1 or 2 weeks, we'll come to you and present them to you. So we will put a stop to that leakage, to that bleeding, and all the challenges that we have. Market reflective tariffs You advise government to charge market reflective tariff. When we get there, the industry has to be mature enough, because power is an essential commodity. You must take into consideration the social responsibility that the country has, the federal government has. So the vulnerable has to be protected. People that can afford to pay, who need it, rather than using generators. Rather than the guys who are buying generators and spending even 3, 4 times. When you give them the right tariff, they will pay. And we'll do the same model. And I will remember what you said. And I'll come back and you can hold me responsible. But before you can charge market reflective tariffs, you have to build trust.
Government councils in this country, 200 million or so, with buildings that are not less than 40 million. How can the 6,000 megawatts serve them? And you are not giving band A, band B, band C. How realistic is it? So if he wants to address it, the first thing is, like I said, can we have a consultative forum with the consumers? Let's hear from them. Then again, the House of Representatives have done something good. Honorable Mustafa Aliyu, who is the chairman House Committee on Ad hoc Committee on Power Sector Reform and Expenditure, the minister should consult him. Okay. They've done extensive work in this sector. I have been privileged to work with them to an extent. Okay, Mr. President. They have found a lot of things that can make this sector work. But telling Nigerians to manage that is, we should wait and be paying the bank, like the previous minister. We told him to consult. Let me tell you, sir, please. I told the minister at public forum, I said, Minister, if you want to work, engage consumers, hear from them, know their problems, because there is so much corruption in the sector. There is so much indiscipline in the sector. And this is providing an opportunity for consumers to be extorted and exploited without any consequence at all. So telling us to manage the exploitation means they can still manipulate us and nothing will be done.
All right, Mr. President. Let's look at it this way. You just talked about consumer consultative forum that they should set it up. Now, is it not possible to enforce sanctions against discos that fail to meet the minimum energy supply to contractual consumers? For instance, a community or a building is on band A, and you say you will have light for about 20 hours, and that is why you are paying this much. And for 1 week you don't have the lights. They now bring it, okay, you didn't consume your stuff, but how about the businesses you have lost? Can there be litigation against discos?
This is what I'm saying, that the minister should consult. What you've raised now borders around Section 217 of the Electricity 2023 Assignment. There are laws, but they are not enforced. That section is on false declaration. But funny enough, the people that make these laws, if you look at the electricity, in fact, the first thing the minister needs to do, apart from consultation with the consumers, is to demand for amendment of the Electricity Act to make it reflect constitutional provisions. The way the Electricity Act is today, it is negative of constitutional provisions. What do I mean by that? Section 17 of the Constitution is on the social objectives of state policy. What you have mentioned now, it relates to Section 34, where you talk A and B, where you talk about torture, inhuman and degrading treatments. But they are provided for. Under Section 217 of the Electricity Act, it says that anyone that declares something that is false, knowing that is not true, should be punished for it. But where is the unit enforcing that section? Because Section 209 down to Section 226 of the Electricity 2023 as amended is on penalties and offenses. But there's no unit in the Ministry of Power that is looking at that section. There's no unit in the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission looking at that section. Consumer Protection Commission is not looking at those sections. But if there is a unit to enforce this, what you said can be dealt with. Because where you give me 4-hour supply and collect money for 20 hours supply, it's false declaration. And you should go in. But again, what is the punishment?
Well, the minister
the funny thing, sorry sister, the funny thing there now is that the punishment is 100,000. or 2 weeks imprisonment or 2 months. But in section 221, where it talks about maybe a consumer confronting a disco staff, the punishment is 6 years imprisonment and 2 million naira. Look at the injustice there. Then you see that the sector is designed against the consumers. It's designed and implemented to favor the distribution companies. Right. So what you've said now, what is ICPC doing? What is EFCC doing? What is the Consumer Protection Commission doing? When they see that consumers are treated this way, what is their program to prevent this kind of negative behaviors in the sector? The sector is giving Nigerians the impression that laws are not obeyed in this country, that they are just on paper and nobody does anything.
The minister admitted that Nigeria does not have a generation problem. It's more of distribution and transmission, and that will be the focus of his time in office. He will focus largely on this distribution and transmission so that Nigerians can get light. He also mentioned that, in 100 days, Nigerians should give him 100 days to fix our fragile grid, Nigeria's fragile grid. Now, what differentiates this from the usual promises we do hear from past ministers who make the same promises and yet are unable to deliver?
Remember, I've made 2 suggestions here. I'll make the 3rd one relating to what you've said. I've said Consumer Consultative Forum. 2, I've said there should be a unit to enforce the penalties and offences segment of the Electricity Act. That section deals with vandalism, electricity theft, and all manner of offences against companies and all that. But it is not enforced. Now, what you've said about grid collapse comes to safety. How is safety enforced in the sector? What is leading to grid collapse? What is the quality of installers of this electricity? Because when you use fake materials or you install electricity in the wrong way, there's no how you can have it efficient. That's why the breeze will blow, the light will go off. So I am happy that the current management of Nigerian Electricity Management Services Agency seem to be listening now, because we have an understanding with them now. We told them, you have 88,090 political wards in this country. Political wards. Now election is on. How many installers in these 88,090 wards are certified?
But you're likening the collapse of the grid to security when it's mainly about distribution.
I'm coming to that.
But we'll come back to that right after the short commercial break. Just hold that thought. Now, we're still talking about the tax ahead of the new power minister, and with us is Mr. Principal Okori. Now, I was asking you, the grid collapse challenge that we face is more of distribution, because we generate, like I said, but the problem is distribution, and that puts a lot of weight on the grid. Don't you think that is the major challenge other than security that you mentioned?
I told you before you went on break that this revolves around safety of the sector. You may call it security, but safety. Nigerian Electricity Management Services Agency, Section 176N, provides that the NEMSA should process and certify competent electrical installers. They also have mandate to ensure that installations are properly done with the right equipment. They have a code you will use to work. But what is happening? You see, when there is no efficient or effective monitoring of a sector, a lot of things happen. I was telling you that in the 88,090 political wards in this country, how many electrical installers in those political wards are certified? Quacks will go, they just get through, maybe people that went to technical college, come out, go and learn electrical this thing, and then has government invested in them? Now you have road safety. Government is investing in road safety. Government is investing in NDLEA, drug. But electricity, the risk in electricity is worse than the one in drug. Because drug is an option. If you like, you take it. If you don't like, you won't. But when there's fire outbreak as a result of electrical accident, nobody escapes. And the properties don't escape. But does it not shock you that the government, especially at the sub-national levels, the states, have no programs for safety in electricity? Yeah. Now, the problem now when you talk about grid, you see that some places, they connect electricity to the grid overnight without proper supervision. How can you go and do where you will use 100 mm wire or cable to install? You use 30 mm cable to install. Nigeria has the best cable, but people go to China, clone them and bring fake. How do they find their way into the markets? Okay. Now, what I'm saying here are, one, quality of materials that are used. Two, you talk about the quality of installers. Then the third is monitoring of the sector by the security. I give you an example. Other records in Akwa Ibom State came to us and complained about being disconnected since 2019. The Port Harcourt Disco said they were owing them 50 million naira. When we went into the matter, do you know that the transmission line there have been vandalized for years? For 6 years, these people were in darkness. The Disco couldn't monitor their lines. TCL couldn't monitor the lines. The local government council has no program. The state government has no program to ensure safety of this equipment. And the civil defense don't enter the bush. They are there and they have the mandate of protecting national critical assets and infrastructure. Which one of them is the power? Okay. So you now look at it. What is the Ministry of Interior doing with the Civil Defense Corps in terms of monitoring transmission lines to ensure that they are not vandalized? Which vandals are caught? And the discos, who you're talking of distribution, who use these equipment to do their job, have no program for protection of even their transformers. Okay, now, when you look at it again, the idea of a disco refusing to sign this third-party investment policy that entails that if I provide transformer as a consumer, you pay me back as a disco because you're using it to do business. Discos don't do that. They will keep the consumers frustrated. The consumers will be begging for a transformer and then use their money to buy. They will not tell them to sign that they have donated it so that they won't refund. Now you see most consumers in communities are buying refurbished transformers that are not of standard. Now, when you don't maintain that standard, how can the grid be stable?
Okay, Mr.
It cannot.
Mr. Kore, talking about
the grid collapse, it's unusual. Sometimes you inherit a problem that you never know how it was conceived. Most countries today, it's difficult to find any other country that has one single grid, national grid. And that's where we're shifting towards mini grids. MD of REA is here. We're trying to do mini grids even using solar and other renewables. 70% of our generation today is gas. But we have abundance of gas. It's how to get the gas to the point of generation of power. We'll fix it. AKK is almost completed. Where we need to take the toll from the pipeline to supply industrial areas, we'll do that. And when you do that, and you also encourage subnationals, and I'll touch on subnationals, there's a question on subnationals, and you encourage subnationals to also generate, you free up the grid, the central grid. And then you can have time to actually fix that grid. And those are the kind of things I want us to we'll look at. You asked a very sensitive question. You asked on the value chain challenge. Why don't you allow people to take it end to end? If you generate, transmit, and distribute. We've seen something similar at the subnationals. Because when you have a catchment area, it means you can generate for that catchment area, you can transmit to the people in that catchment area, and you can build in that catchment area. So you can do that, those smaller scales. We will encourage that to happen at smaller scales. But again, closely watch that our people, the vulnerable, are being served. Because even in the telecom sector that we celebrate today, some of my colleagues in telecom sectors are here, the truth was that the vulnerable had to be protected. Because no businessman wants to do business without making profit. So you must have policies that ensure that while they are making their profit, the less privileged, the poor and the vulnerable people in Nigeria are protected. And that's going to be my guiding principle. Question?
Legislature come up with that. It comes to question the quality of representation. Not that they are not qualified, but that willingness, that patriotic interest to protect the ordinary Nigerian. The sector is in such a way that lobbying is what drives it. The consumers are not, are not together to go and lobby in the house. But we have tried to let the ad hoc committee know that consumers should be listened to. And that's why they're listening to us. I must tell you, I must commend Honorable Aliyu here. When I explained these things to him, he now said I should come and join them to be bringing the consumer perspective to what they do. The last time they brought the discos to the house, discos were accusing consumers. And consumers are doing this. Consumers are owing them. Consumers are refusing to pay. The willingness to pay depends on the confidence the consumer has in your service delivery. When he knows you are extorting and exploiting him, he will not pay you because you cannot even justify the billing you are giving them. The disco will come and tell you consumers are owing them so much money. But this money they are claiming are fraudulently generated bills. We didn't follow the capping methodology. Didn't follow the estimated billing methodology that next set up. So when the sector is so open, without discipline, no transparency. So the minister needs to look at discipline in the sector by ensuring there is a unit that will ensure that the penalties and offences segment of the Electricity Act is enforced. If you do wrong, you should be punished. And when that is being done, you see that people will be careful. Take for instance, look at Imo State now. Do you know that Transpower, which is a subsidiary of Enugu Electricity Distribution Company, is operating without license in that state? And the Imo electricity law says it is only licensed entities that can supply electricity at Colorado. But this company is going all over the communities collecting money. And then even the consumer complaints that went to the Imo State Electricity Regulatory Commission, when they sit on them and then give the company penalty for failing to do what is right, they refuse to pay. They are owing about 679 million to the Regulatory Commission.
Corey, let's take a look at what the President of the Senate said yesterday during the screening. He openly referenced cabals in the power sector, and he believes that this is the problem, the major problem or challenge confronting this sector. Do you also believe that there are entrenched interests that benefit from the darkness that Nigerians are currently facing? And if this exists, why has no administration been able to dismantle these cabals?
My dear sister, in 1994, I had the privilege to meet with the European Union head of delegation to Nigeria. After Africa Leadership Forum held a program in Cotonou then that brought about Transparency International. And that was on corruption. I was much younger. And I told the man, the corruption you people talk about in Africa is not developed by Africans. Remember that time was when Nigeria played ball with Argentina, that Maradona used hand to score goal. I told them that in the conference in Cotonou that what you do to our economy is what Maradona did in the field of soccer. Because Africa is the largest producer of primary industrial products. Why don't you set up these industries in Africa so that you can create jobs for us? But you take the thing out there. That's why Rudy also wrote a book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. The education they gave us was for us to carry timber to the sea, put it in the ship and it goes. You don't say you are educated. Now, I challenge them to that. Dieter Frisch, who was the Director of Economic Development at Brussels, he was in that meeting. He gave me a note to meet the head of delegation in Nigeria. I came here, met the man. The man told me, young man, where will you start fighting corruption in Nigeria? That do I know that I accuse them of not helping to develop Nigeria and Africa? That they have tried to bring books to the federal universities, their libraries, that they got stuck at the high sea. Severally, they got frustrated. That they were bringing motor spare parts in return for the oil they get from Nigeria. Each time they want to bring it, they will change the Minister of Finance. They will start another process. That the thing has been there. The point I'm trying to make is that there are cabals, but the cabal will increase now.
Why?
Let me tell you why. Do you know people are talking on state electricity markets now? Have we reviewed the failure of NEC, the failure of the electricity sector before starting state electricity markets?
That has already been made possible by
the cabals are coming. Do you know the owner of these discos? Why do you think that these discos cannot be punished? And why do you think that the legislators make this kind of laws that are making, that are against consumers? Because there's a cabal. I talked to somebody in AEDC who told me that the people that own them is the bankers.
So you believe
the bankers,
that not monopolizing the sector to just be at the federal level and to go down to state
the
to
governors
further
now,
deepen this problem?
It will be worse. We civil society people in the sector are thinking of what we can do to advocate. Go and check the ones that have been licensed now. What is the condition of consumers there? What we used to know is go and check the number that have set up their electricity law and the electricity markets. The consumers there is worse for them now.
Okay, Mr. Okori.
Because the governors now are appointing their political aides into the commission, electricity commission. Whether they have technical knowledge or not, they are being appointed. And if you are the chairman appointed by the governor, you do the bidding of the governor.
Okay, just
and if the governor needs to make
Okori,
money from that sector, you can't say anything.
Mr. Okori,
so it's worse.
Some consumers are now turning to solar and off-grid solutions. Do you think this is one thing that the minister should look at? If the on-grid is giving us challenge, should we also be looking at solar and the off-grid electricity supply?
If your child in your house is misbehaving, will you send him away? Or you discipline him and make him stay in the house? That's my response. Because what is happening? The solar, will it drive economy? To what extent? How many people can even install it now with the money? I'm not saying it's bad. But the problem in this country is that we don't correct evil. You go to police station now as a complainant, before you know it, the accused becomes innocent. Because the police would rather want to do the other one, and the complainant becomes accused if he doesn't take his time. That is what is happening. Look at how our economy derailed. When we had public enterprises, we had Peugeot, we had Volkswagen, we had all those textile industries, there were jobs. People began to embezzle funds and mismanage them. Rather than punish them and set the sector right, we ran to privatization. Look at how Nigerians are suffering in petroleum now. The President Tinubu administration is saying that there are cabals in the power sector who are messing up the subsidy. Who are they? Why not mention them and punish them? Why not mention them, punish them and recover the money and let Nigerians be happy? But rather than mention them and punish them, the punishment has been turned to innocent Nigerians that never knew anything about the subsidy. That's what we are
Let's
seeing.
take a review at the Siemens Presidential Power Initiative that was presented majorly as a turning point for the power sector. It was also rejigged under the administration of the former minister.
Let's look at the governance.
How has this, impacted the power sector? And, has it made any impact at all?
If the foundation be destroyed, what can the righteous do? That is what the Bible said. If the management of the sector, the governance of the sector is contract prone, people want to make it right now. They are talking of presidential metering initiative. Why will the DISCO fix the price of meter that they didn't manufacture? Have you asked about that? Why will the DISCO be the one to fix the price of meter that they didn't manufacture? And now, NEC is saying they want to push metering and billing issues to state electricity markets. People that don't have the capacity yet. You've not trained them. You've not developed them. And they are going to operate under the control of the state governments. And that's why we are complaining. The so-called professionals in this country are so docile when it comes to political issues. And they leave the thing for just politicians. And by the time politicians emerge, without the professional bodies influencing them to look at their ideological perspectives and look at the interest of the professional bodies and let it drive the message, the campaign message of political parties. Let the candidates that will emerge be the ones that professional bodies agree can perform. But what do you see? Professionals, you people are journalists. What is the AUJ saying now? What is the agenda of the AUJ?
So
what is the agenda of...
would you liken the problem to a political problem or a technical problem?
It is technical and political. It is mainly political.
How much of technical